The stars held no mercy for the weak. War Prime Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another world burn. Below them, the green and blue planet of Mordan was dying. Smoke rose from its cities like dark prayers to forgotten gods. Kethvar was 8 feet tall, covered in black armor that grew from his own body. His claws could cut through steel, and his yellow eyes saw in perfect darkness. He was Vexithari, and the Vexithari were the greatest hunters in the galaxy. For 3,000 years they had conquered every species they met. Today would be no different. "The prey runs well today," said Subprime Gethnox, approaching with blood still fresh on his claws. The Mordani fought harder than expected. Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter. "They always fight at the end, it makes the hunt sweeter." He turned to look at the tactical display. Red dots showed Vexithari hunting parties moving across the planet's surface. Blue dots showed the remaining Mordani settlements. There were very few blue dots left. The Mordani had been peaceful farmers and artists. Their cities were full of beautiful gardens and singing fountains. They had never hurt anyone. That made them perfect prey for the Vexthari, who lived only for the hunt. Every Vexthari child learned the same lesson. The strong hunt the weak, and there is no greater purpose in the universe. War Prime called a communications officer. "We have detected another ship at the edge of the system." Kethvar's head snapped around. "Another prey species come to watch their friends die?" "Unknown, War Prime. The ship design is unfamiliar. It appears to be observing our operations." Kethvar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Send a hunting pack to investigate. If they run, follow them. I want to know where they came from." Far away at the edge of the star system, Captain Tejo watched the destruction through his ship's sensors. His hands shook as he saw the readings. Millions of life signs were disappearing from the planet below. An entire civilization was being wiped out. "Captain," said his navigation officer, a young woman named Mi Young. "We should leave. Now." Tejo nodded slowly. He had seen enough. His ship, the Soul's Pride, was just a small scout vessel. They had come here following strange signals detected by Earth's deep space monitoring stations. Dr. Jin Woo had been right. There was something terrible happening in this part of the galaxy. "Set course for Earth," Tejo ordered. "Maximum speed." As they turned to leave, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "Captain," shouted the sensor operator. "5 ships coming our way. Fast." Tejo looked at the display. The approaching ships were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They looked organic, like living creatures with metal teeth. Even worse, they were gaining speed. "All power to engines," Tejo commanded. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we found the source of the signals. Tell them—" He paused, trying to find words for what he had witnessed. "Tell them we found something that kills entire worlds for sport." The Soul's Pride jumped to faster than light speed just as the first Vexithari weapons reached their position. Space twisted around them and they escaped into the darkness between stars. On the Vexithari flagship, Kethvar studied the sensor readings from the chase. The unknown ship had been fast, but more importantly, it had been watching them. That meant intelligence. That meant planning. That meant a species that might actually provide a good hunt. "Did we get a scan of their ship?" he asked. "Yes, War Prime. The design suggests they come from a system approximately 40 light-years from here. A yellow star with several planets." Kethvar's yellow eyes gleamed. "How many prey species in that system?" "Sensors detect only one, War Prime. They appear to be concentrated on the 3rd planet from their star. One species, one world." Kethvar tasted the air with his forked tongue. "Perfect. When we finish here, we hunt them next." Back on Earth, Dr. Jinwoo paced nervously in the Global Defense Council meeting room. He was a thin man with worried eyes, and he had been warning anyone who would listen about the signals from space. Most people thought he was seeing threats that didn't exist. Admiral Somin sat across from him, reading Tejo's report for the 3rd time. She was a serious woman who had spent her career preparing for threats from space, but nothing had prepared her for this. You're telling me, she said slowly, that there's a species out there that destroys civilizations for fun. That's what Captain Tejo observed, Jinwoo replied. An entire planet of peaceful beings wiped out in less than a day, and they're headed in our direction. Admiral Somin set down the report. How long do we have? Based on the ship movements, Tejo recorded maybe 6 months, maybe less. And these Vexthari. What do we know about them? Jinwoo pulled up a holographic display showing the sensor data from the Soul's Pride. They're bigger than us, stronger. Their ships are faster. They've been doing this for thousands of years. He paused. Admiral, every species they've encountered has been destroyed. Every single one. Somin studied the data carefully. As a military officer, she had learned to look for weaknesses in any enemy. But the Vexthari seemed to have none. They were perfect predators who had never met anything they couldn't kill. What about their psychology? She asked. How do they think? Like animals, Jinwoo said. Pure hunters. They don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, and they don't show mercy. They see everything else in the universe as either prey or competition to be eliminated. Somin was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, she could see people walking in the sunshine, living their normal lives. They had no idea that somewhere in the darkness of space, something was coming that had never been defeated. Doctor, she said finally, I need you to gather everything we know about predator behavior. Every study, every theory, every scrap of data about how apex predators think and hunt. Why? Somin stood up and walked to the window. Because if we're going to survive this, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. And more importantly, we need to figure out how to be something they've never encountered before. In the distance, Jinwoo could hear the sound of children playing in a nearby park. Their laughter seemed very fragile now, like something that might disappear forever if the wrong wind blew through the galaxy. The hunt was coming to Earth. The emergency session of Earth's Global Defense Council lasted 18 hours. President Hyojin sat at the head of the table, surrounded by military leaders, scientists, and diplomats from every major nation. The debate had been going in circles for most of the day. We should hide, argued Secretary Changmin from the European Federation. If this species has never been defeated, why should we be the first to try? Because hiding won't work, General Dongwu replied firmly. They found us once, they'll find us again. And while we're hiding, they'll be killing other innocent species. Dr. Jinwoo looked exhausted. He had been answering the same questions over and over. The Vexthari don't negotiate. They don't trade. They hunt. That's all they do. If we make contact, they'll see it as a sign of weakness. President Hyojin raised her hand for silence. What about the other species, the ones that survived? There aren't many, Jinwoo admitted. Captain Tejo detected some signals that might be from refugee populations, but most civilizations are completely destroyed. As if summoned by his words, an aide rushed into the room with an urgent message. Madam President, we're receiving a transmission from Europa Research Station. The main screen flickered to life, showing a badly damaged communication center. A man in a torn research uniform appeared on screen. His face was covered in blood and dust. This is Dr. Young-soo at Europa Station, he said, his voice shaking. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack by unknown hostiles. They came out of nowhere. Our defenses, they're not even slowing them down. The transmission erupted with the sound of explosions and screaming. Through the static, they could see dark shapes moving through the corridors of the research station, shapes with claws and yellow eyes. They're in the main lab, Young-soo continued desperately. They're killing everyone, not taking prisoners, not asking questions, just killing. They seem to enjoy. The transmission cut to static. The room fell, silent. Europa Station housed 2,400 researchers and their families. It was one of humanity's most advanced facilities, located in orbit around Jupiter. If the Vexithari could destroy it so easily, nowhere in the solar system was safe. General, Dongwu spoke first. I'm mobilizing all available fleets. We need to reach Europa. It's too late, Admiral Somin said quietly. Europa Station is gone. The question now is what we do next. President Hai-Jin felt the weight of every decision pressing down on her. She thought about the children she had seen playing in the park just yesterday. How long before they reach Earth? Based on their attack pattern, Jinwoo calculated quickly, maybe 3 weeks. Before anyone could respond, another aide entered with news that changed everything. Madam President, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown source. They claim to represent something called the Galactic Liberation Front. The screen changed again. This time it showed a creature that looked like a cross between a cat and a lizard. She had golden fur and large, intelligent eyes. When she spoke, it was in accented but clear English. People of Earth, she said. My name is Zilara of the Keth Mori. We have been watching your species for some time. We know the Vexathari have found you. The room buzzed with whispered conversations. First contact with aliens had always been theoretical. Now it was happening in the middle of a crisis. We represent the survivors of 200 civilizations that the Vexathari have attacked, Zilara continued. We have formed an alliance dedicated to stopping them, but we must tell you the truth. No species has ever defeated the Vexathari in direct combat. They are too strong, too fast, too ruthless. General Dongwu leaned forward. Then, how do we fight them? Every species that has tried used the same tactics, Zilara explained. Superior technology, strong defenses, or mass attacks, all failed. The Vexathari are the perfect predators. They adapt to any threat and overcome it. President Hai-Jin felt her heart sink. So you're saying we have no chance? I am saying that no one has found a way to beat them using conventional methods. Zilara paused. But your species, you are different. Our scouts have observed your history. You fight wars unlike any other species we have encountered. Commander Minho, who had been quietly studying the tactical reports, suddenly spoke up. They fight like animals. Pure predator instinct. Exactly, Zilara confirmed. They cannot understand complex strategy or deception. They see only hunter and prey. But humans aren't just predators, Dr. Ji Yan added. She was a military psychologist who specialized in combat behavior. We're also prey animals. We evolved being hunted by larger, stronger creatures. We learned to survive using intelligence, cooperation, and tricks. Minho's eyes lit up with understanding. They've never faced an enemy that thinks like prey and fights like a predator at the same time. Admiral Somin began to see the possibilities. What do you mean? Every species they've defeated either ran away or met them head-on, Minho explained. But what if we did both? What if we ran when they expected us to fight and fought when they expected us to run? Dr. Ji Yan nodded excitedly. Psychological warfare. Make them doubt their instincts. Predators rely on predictable behavior from their prey. President Hai-Jin looked around the room. For the first time since this crisis began, she saw hope in people's faces. Commander Minho, I want you to work with Dr. Ji Yan and our alien allies. Develop strategies that no predator has ever seen before. What about our fleets? General Dongwu asked. We'll use them, but not the way the Vexathari expect. Minho was already thinking like a guerrilla fighter. Instead of big battles, we hit and run. Instead of protecting our territory, we make them chase us through theirs. Zilara's image smiled for the first time. This is why we have hope for your species. But I must warn you, the Vexathari will not understand what you are doing at first. That will make them angry. When Vexathari become angry, they become more dangerous. Good, said President Hai-Jin firmly. Angry predators make mistakes. 2 weeks later, Commander Minho stood in the briefing room of the stealth ship Busan. Runner. Around him sat 20 of Earth's best special operations soldiers. On the screen was a detailed map of a Vexathari-occupied world called Kelm 4. Our mission is simple, Minho explained. We're going to do something the Vexathari have never seen before. We're going to steal their prey. Sergeant Major Bo-Ra raised her hand. Sir, clarify, steal their prey? The Vexthari keep captured populations as slaves and food sources. They never expect anyone to rescue them because no species has ever tried. Minho pointed to several locations on the map. We're going to liberate 3 slave camps simultaneously. Then we're going to arm the survivors and teach them to fight back. Lieutenant Wu Jin looked confused. But sir, won't that just get the prisoners killed? Not if we do it right, Minho replied. The Vexthari psychologically cannot handle the idea of prey becoming predators. It will confuse them, make them hesitate, and hesitation is death in combat. Dr. Young-Soo, who had survived the Europa station attack, stepped forward. I've analyzed Vexthari behavior patterns. They have one critical weakness. They cannot adapt when their fundamental assumptions about reality are challenged. Bora grinned. So we challenge their assumptions. Exactly, Minho confirmed. Tonight we begin Operation Ghost Hunt. We're going to teach the galaxy's perfect predators what it feels like to be prey. As the Busan runner entered stealth mode and headed for Vexthari territory, none of them knew they were about to change the course of galactic history. In a few hours, for the first time in 3,000 years, a Vexthari hunting pack would discover that sometimes the prey hunts back. War Prime Kethvar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 3 slave camps had been hit simultaneously during the night. The prisoners were gone. The guards were dead. And somehow, the attackers had vanished without a trace. How many prey escaped? He demanded. Subprime Gethnox consulted his reports with trembling claws. Approximately 15,000 from all 3 sites combined, War Prime. 15,000. Kethvar tasted the air with his forked tongue. It was supposed to be a calming gesture, but today it only made him more agitated. How does an army large enough to break 15,000 prisoners disappear? We don't. No, War Prime. Our hunting packs found no trace of the raiding force. It's as if they simply vanished into space. Kethvar turned to his intelligence officer. What do our sources in the slave populations tell us? That is the other problem, War Prime. The prisoners are no longer cooperating. Even those still in captivity refuse to provide information. Some have begun attacking their guards. This was unprecedented. In 3,000 years of conquest, prey species had never organized resistance movements. They submitted or died. Those were the only options the universe allowed. Show me the recordings from the attacks, Kethvar ordered. The main screen displayed security footage from Camp 7 on Kelm 4. Dark figures moved through the shadows like ghosts. They used explosives to breach walls, but the explosions were strangely quiet. They killed guards efficiently, but they also did something no Vexthari had ever seen. They freed prisoners and then disappeared with them. They fight like Vexthari, Gethnox observed, but they think like prey. It's unnatural. Kethvar watched the footage again. The attackers moved in small groups, using stealth and surprise instead of overwhelming force. When Vexthari hunting packs arrived, the attackers were already gone. It was like trying to hunt shadows. War Prime, another officer reported. We're receiving similar reports from 7 other worlds. Slave camps attacked, prisoners freed, guards eliminated. Always the same pattern. Same attackers? Unknown. The assault patterns are consistent, but we have no visual confirmation of the same individuals. Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before. Confusion about how to conduct a hunt. Every instinct told him to chase the attackers, but there was nothing to chase. They appeared, struck, and vanished like they had never existed. 30 light-years away, Commander Minho stood in the cargo bay of the liberation ship New Seoul, watching as rescued prisoners from a dozen different species received medical treatment. Many of them had been slaves for years. Some had never known freedom. Dr. Yoonji, a xenobiologist who had joined the liberation effort, was cataloging the different species. This is incredible, she told Minho. 12 different civilizations, all supposedly extinct according to Galactic Liberation Front records. The Vexthari don't destroy everything, Minho realized. They keep some alive for later use. Zilara, the Kethmori liaison, approached with a troubled expression. Commander, We need to discuss something important. Our intelligence sources report that the Vexthari are changing their behavior. Good or bad changes? Unknown. They are becoming more aggressive but also more erratic. Some hunting packs have begun attacking their own supply lines, thinking they are being infiltrated by enemies. Minho smiled grimly. Paranoia. We're getting inside their heads. Dr. Ji-Yon, monitoring Vexithari communications from the ship's intelligence center, called out to them. Commander, you need to hear this. She played a recorded transmission between two Vexithari vessels. Even through the translation software, the confusion and fear in their voices was clear. The prey no longer behaves as prey should. One Vexithari, officer was saying. They set traps, they plan attacks, they rescue each other. This violates the natural order. Perhaps we should request reinforcements from the home fleet, another voice suggested. Reinforcements against what? We cannot chase what we cannot find. We cannot hunt what hunts us back. Lieutenant Colonel Seung Woo entered the intelligence center carrying a datapad full of mission reports. Sir, Operation Ghost Hunt is exceeding all projections. We've liberated 47 prison camps across 12 star systems. More importantly, the freed prisoners are forming their own resistance cells. How effective are they? Minho asked. Very. It turns out that when you give desperate people weapons and training, they become extremely motivated fighters. Some groups have liberated entire settlements without our direct involvement. Dr. Yunji looked up from her research. Commander, I think I understand why this is working so well. The Vexthari have a psychological blind spot. They literally cannot process the concept of prey becoming predators. Their entire worldview depends on the idea that strength always dominates weakness. And we're proving them wrong. More than that, we're destroying their fundamental understanding of how the universe works. Captain J. Min of the UES Incheon contacted them over subspace radio. Minho, we just completed the space equivalent of a submarine patrol through Vexthari territory. 12 supply convoys destroyed. No losses on our side. How did they respond? That's the interesting part. They're spreading their fleets thinner to protect more targets. Classic mistake for any navy fighting a guerrilla campaign. They're weakening themselves trying to defend everything. Admiral Soman's voice joined the conversation from Earth Command. All units, this is Admiral Soman. Intelligence reports that Vexithari fleet movements are becoming increasingly disorganized. Some hunting packs are refusing orders to pursue human forces. Minho felt a surge of hope. They're afraid. More than afraid, Dr. Ji-Yon added. They're questioning everything they believe about themselves. For a predator species, that's psychologically devastating. On the bridge of his flagship, War Prime Kethvar was indeed questioning everything. His latest intelligence reports made no sense. Human forces seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. They had no fixed positions to attack, no leaders to eliminate, no home bases to destroy. War Prime, Gethnox reported nervously. 3 more hunting packs have reported being hunted. Explain. Human forces are somehow tracking our patrol routes. They ambush our ships, disable them, and rescue any prisoners aboard. Then they disappear before reinforcements arrive. Kethvar's claws scraped against the metal of his command chair. Are you telling me that prey animals are hunting Vexithari? The evidence suggests yes. War Prime. For the first time in his life, Kethvar felt the emotion that prey animals lived with every day. Fear. Not fear of death, which was honorable, but fear of the unknown. Fear of enemies that didn't follow the rules. Fear that everything he understood about the universe might be wrong. Set course for the human home system, he ordered. If we cannot hunt them in space, we will hunt them on their nest world. War Prime. Our intelligence suggests that attacking Earth directly might be exactly what they want us to do. Kethvar turned to stare at his subordinate with yellow eyes full of rage. Are you suggesting that prey animals might be clever enough to set a trap for Vexithari? Gethnox said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. In the new Souls War room, Minho received confirmation that the Vexithari main fleet was heading for Earth, just as they had hoped. They're going to try to cut off the head of the snake, he told his staff. They still think we work like they do. Remove the leaders and the followers collapse. Sergeant Major Bora grinned. Time to show them how wrong they are. Signal Earth. Command, Minho ordered. Tell them Operation Ghost Hunt is transitioning to Phase 2. The real hunt is about to begin. As the Vexthari fleet moved toward Earth, they had no idea they were walking into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. For 3,000 years they had been the hunters. Now they were about to learn what it felt like to be the hunted. The galaxy was burning, but this time it was burning by choice. On 200 worlds, slave populations had risen against their Vexthari masters. What had begun as rescue missions had evolved into something the Vexthari could never have imagined. Their prey had become predators. General Hyunwoo stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense platform, coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Operation Switchback was everything the Vexthari couldn't handle: simultaneous coordinated attacks by species they had written off as harmless prey. Status report from Sector 7, announced Communications Officer Park Jin. The Mordani. Survivors have retaken their home system, reported Captain Sung Hee from her position at the tactical display. They're using modified Vexthari weapons and human tactics. Enemy forces in full retreat. Hyunwoo nodded grimly. The Mordani had been peaceful farmers before the Vexthari destroyed their civilization. Now they fought with the desperate fury of people who had lost everything and wanted revenge. What about the Kethmori? He asked. Zilara reports that her people have liberated 16 worlds in the past month, Sung Hee replied. The Vexthari are pulling forces from other sectors to try to contain them. Dr. Sujin entered the command center carrying a tablet full of technical data. As Earth's leading quantum physicist, she had been studying captured Vexthari technology for months. Her discoveries were about to change everything. General, I need to brief you on something critical, she said urgently. The Vexthari faster-than-light travel system isn't purely technological, it's biological. Hyunwoo turned his attention to her. Explain. Their ships use neural networks grown from living Vexthari brain tissue. The networks allow near-instantaneous communication and coordination across their entire fleet. Sujin pulled up a holographic display showing the complex biological systems. But here's the weakness. When Vexthari experience extreme psychological stress, their neural networks begin to malfunction. Are you saying that fear literally breaks their ships? Not exactly breaks, but severely limits their effectiveness. Stressed Vexthari crews can't maintain the neural connections needed for coordinated fleet movements. They start making tactical errors, losing communication with other ships, and most importantly, they can't coordinate their famous pack hunting tactics. Captain Sung Hee looked up from her tactical display. General, we're getting reports that multiple Vexthari fleets are operating independently instead of as coordinated units. Some are even attacking each other. Dr. Sujin nodded. The psychological warfare is working better than we hoped. We're not just defeating them militarily, we're breaking down their ability to function as a species. Across the galaxy, Private Woojin crouched in the ruins of a Vexthari breeding facility on the planet Kresh 9. His mission had been to gather intelligence, but what he found there changed his understanding of the enemy forever. In a damaged holding cell, he discovered a young Vexthari, barely more than a child. The creature was injured and clearly terrified. Instead of attacking, it cowered in the corner, making soft whimpering sounds. Easy there, Woojin said gently, setting down his weapon. I'm not going to hurt you. The young Vexthari looked up with eyes that weren't yellow like the adults, but a deep blue. When it spoke, its voice was nothing like the harsh growls of adult Vexthari. Are you going to kill me like the others killed my clutchmates? It asked in broken but understandable standard galactic. Woojin felt his heart break. What others? The big ones. The hunters. They say if we don't pass the blood trial by our 5th molting, we're not worthy to live. The child showed Woojin, scars covering its small body. I couldn't kill the prey thing they gave me. It looked too much like me when I was smaller. This changed everything. Woojin activated his communicator. Command, this is Recon 7. I need immediate extraction and a xenobiologist. We have a situation. 6 hours later, Dr. Yunji was examining the young Vexithari, who had told them his name was Kilmore. Her findings shocked everyone involved. He's, not naturally aggressive, she reported to the mission command. The violent behavior we see in adult Vexithari is learned, not instinctive. They condition their children through systematic brutality. Colonel In-suk, who commanded the liberation forces in this sector, listened to the report with growing anger. So they're not born monsters. They're made into monsters. That's correct, and according to Kilmore, many young Vexithari refuse the conditioning. They're usually killed for being defective. Wu Jin, who had stayed with Kilmore during the examination, spoke up. Colonel, there are more children in facilities like this across Vexithari space. If we could rescue them, we could prove that the Vexithari can be something other than killers, In-suk finished. But it would be extremely dangerous. These facilities are heavily guarded. Dr. Yunji pulled up a star map showing known Vexithari breeding worlds. According to Kilmore, there are 12 major facilities. If we could hit even half of them, we could save an entire generation, In-suk said quietly. But it would cost lives. A lot of lives. She was right. Operation Child Shield, as it came to be known, was the most dangerous mission the liberation forces had ever attempted. Vexithari breeding worlds were fortress planets, protected by their most elite hunting packs. In-suk led the assault on Vex Home 4 personally. Her forces fought through 3 days of brutal combat to reach the central breeding facility. What they found there made even hardened soldiers weep. Thousands of young Vexithari were kept in cells, being systematically tortured and conditioned to become killers. Many were already dead, victims of the trials that were supposed to make them worthy hunters. The survivors looked at their rescuers with the same blue eyes Kilmore had shown. Get them out, In-suk ordered her troops. All of them. The evacuation took 6 hours under constant enemy fire. In-suk's rear guard held off 3 Vexithari hunting packs while the children were loaded onto transport ships. She knew they wouldn't all make it out. Colonel, we need to go, urged Sergeant Kwang-min as Vexithari reinforcements approached their position. 30 more seconds, In-suk replied, watching as the last transport loaded with rescued children lifted off. Make sure they reach the extraction point. What about you, Colonel? In-suk smiled sadly as she armed the explosive charges they had planted throughout the facility. Someone has to make sure this place never creates another monster. The explosion could be seen from orbit. Colonel In-suk's sacrifice saved 847 young Vexithari and destroyed the largest breeding facility in their empire. Her last transmission became a rallying cry for liberation forces across the galaxy. Every child deserves a chance to choose what they become. On the bridge of his flagship, War Prime Kethavar received the reports from Vex Home 4 with growing disbelief. The humans hadn't just attacked a military target. They had stolen children, his children. They took our young, he growled to Subprime Gethnox. They violated the most sacred law of the hunt. War Prime, perhaps we should consider that the humans might be trying to save the children, not harm them. Kethavar turned on his subordinate with rage. Save them? From what? From becoming like us, Gethnox said quietly. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kethavar felt something crack inside his mind. For the first time in his life, he wondered if the humans might be right to fear what the Vexithari had become. Set course for Earth, he ordered. I will end this by killing every human leader personally. When the pack alphas are dead, their followers will surrender like proper prey. But as the Vexithari fleet moved toward humanity's homeworld, Kethavar couldn't shake the image of the rescued children. Blue eyes instead of yellow. Voices that spoke softly instead of growling. What if the humans were right? What if the Vexithari had forgotten what they were supposed to be? Behind them, on a hidden sanctuary world called New Haven, young Vexithari played alongside human and alien children for the first time in their lives. They laughed instead of roared. They shared instead of took. They protected instead of hunted. And in that laughter, the future of the galaxy was being reborn. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel surrounded by fire. Around it, the largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. War Prime Kethvar had brought 60% of the remaining Vexthari fleet, determined to end the human rebellion by destroying their homeworld. President Hyjin stood in the emergency command bunker beneath Seoul, watching as enemy ships filled the tactical displays. Her advisors wanted her to evacuate to a safer location, but she had refused. If Earth was going to fall, she would fall with it. Madam President, Admiral Kyung-soo reported from the orbital defense platform. Enemy fleet composition shows 847 Vexithari vessels of various classes. They're moving into attack formation. And our forces? 412 ships, including allied vessels from the Liberation Front. We're outnumbered 2-1. Hyjin nodded calmly. Admiral, signal all ships. Implement Protocol Defiance. Across Earth's communication networks, a message went out that would be remembered for 1,000 years. Citizens of Earth and our allies throughout the galaxy, this is President Hyjin. Today, the Vexthari have come to our home, believing that if they destroy our leaders and our world, humanity will surrender. They are wrong. The message was broadcast not just to Earth's military forces, but to every human ship, every liberated world, and every resistance cell across the galaxy. If Earth falls today, we do not surrender. If our government is destroyed, we do not stop fighting. If our fleet is scattered, we do not give up hope. We are not the Vexthari. We do not depend on pack leaders or alpha predators to tell us what to do. Every human on every world and every ship will continue this fight until the Vexthari learn to coexist, or until they are gone forever. On the Vexthari flagship, Kethvar listened to the translation with growing confusion. They're saying, "They will fight even if we kill all their leaders?" "That appears to be correct, War Prime," Subprime Gethnox replied nervously. "Our intelligence suggests that human society doesn't collapse when leadership is eliminated. They have something they call distributed command structure." "Impossible. All species follow the strong. Remove the alpha and the pack scatters." "Human psychology appears to be different, War Prime. They fight for ideas, not just for leaders." Kethvar's confusion turned to rage. Nothing about this species made sense. They fought like predators but thought like prey. They rescued enemies and armed the weak. Now they claimed they could fight without leaders. It violated every natural law he understood. "Begin the assault," he ordered. "We'll see how long their ideas last against Vexthari claws." The space battle began with the fury of a dying star. Vexithari ships designed like living weapons tore through Earth's defensive formations, but the humans didn't fight the way Kethvar expected. Instead of meeting him in traditional fleet combat, they scattered into small groups, using the debris of destroyed stations as cover. Admiral Kyung-soo coordinated the defense from his flagship, while smaller human vessels darted between the enemy ships like schools of fish avoiding sharks. "All units, implement submarine protocol. Hit and run, then disappear into the asteroid field." Captain Nara of the destroyer Mokpo reported successful strikes on 3 Vexthari supply vessels. "Admiral, they're chasing individual ships instead of maintaining formation. Their pack instincts are working against them in 3-dimensional space combat." On the planet's surface, General Dong-woo prepared for ground combat in Seoul. The Vexthari had announced they would land hunting parties to track down human leadership personally. They expected traditional urban warfare. They were about to get something very different. "All civilian populations have been evacuated to the underground networks," reported Colonel Jang Ho. "We have 40,000 volunteers who refuse to leave." Volunteers? Citizens who want to help defend their city. Teachers, shop owners, office workers. None of them are soldiers, but all of them know how to make the Vexthari pay for every street. Dong-woo smiled grimly. The Vexthari understood hunting armed opponents. They had no experience with an entire city that refused to be conquered. First Vexthari dropships landed in the ruins of Gangnam District. Kethvar led the hunt personally, expecting to track down cowering human leaders. Instead, he found empty buildings and silent streets. "Where are they?" demanded Hunt Leader Vashtek. "Spread out and search," Kethvar ordered. "Find their scent trails." As the Vexthari hunting pack moved through the abandoned district, They began to realize they were not alone. Windows watched them. Shadows moved in doorways. The prey they were hunting seemed to be all around them, but nowhere they could reach. The first attack came from above. Human defenders dropped explosive charges from rooftops, then disappeared into the buildings before the Vexthari could respond. The second attack came from below, as the extensive subway system became a network of tunnels allowing humans to appear and vanish at will. "This is not hunting," Vashtek protested as another member of their pack fell to a sniper's bullet. "This is something else." Kethvar was beginning to understand. The humans had turned their entire city into a weapon. Every building was a potential fortress. Every street was a potential trap. Every civilian was a potential threat. Dr. Jin Wu, the scientist whose discovery had started this war, watched the battle from a fortified position in Seoul National University. As Kethvar's hunting pack approached the campus, Jin Wu made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of running or fighting, he stepped out into the open with his hands raised. "War Prime Kethvar," he called out in the Vexthari language. "I am Dr. Jin Wu, the human who first detected your people. I want to show you something." Kethvar approached cautiously, claws extended. "You offer yourself as prey?" "I offer you truth," Jin Wu replied. He activated a portable holographic projector. The image that appeared showed the sanctuary world of New Haven, where rescued Vexthari children played peacefully with human and alien youngsters. "This is Kilmore," Jin Wu said, pointing to a young Vexthari who was teaching human children how to build something that looked like art instead of weapons. "He was rescued from one of your breeding facilities. Watch him." The hologram showed Kilmore laughing, actually laughing, as he helped a small human girl complete a colorful sculpture. His eyes were still blue, not the yellow of adult Vexithari. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. "I remember being afraid all the time," Kilmore was saying to his human friends. "But here I don't have to hurt anyone to prove I'm strong. I can be strong by helping instead." Kethvar stared at the image in shock. "This cannot be Vexthari. Vexthari do not play." "He is what your species can become," Jin Wu said quietly. "We have 847 young Vexithari on New Haven. None of them want to hurt anyone. None of them want to hunt. They want to build things, create art, explore the universe. They want to choose their own path." "You lie," Kethvar growled, but his voice lacked conviction. "The young one has been corrupted by your weakness." "Has he?" Jin Wu asked. "Or has he been freed from your conditioning?" The hologram changed, to show adult Vexithari who had abandoned the hunt. Some worked alongside human engineers. Others had become teachers, artists, even healers. They looked different from the warriors, calmer, more thoughtful. "We call them the Reformed," Jin Wu explained. "Vexithari, who chose to become something other than killers. Subprime Gethnox is one of them. He's been secretly helping us rescue your children." Kethvar felt his world collapse around him. "Gethnox betrayed the hunt?" "Gethnox chose evolution over extinction," Jin Wu corrected, "just like you can choose." For the first time in his life, Kethvar experienced doubt about everything he believed. The young Vexthari in the hologram were clearly happier than any he had ever seen. They were creative, peaceful, and most importantly, they were still alive without being killers. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Nothing," Jin Wu replied. "The choice is yours. You can continue the hunt until your species destroys itself, or you can learn to be something new." Above them, the space battle was ending. The Vexthari fleet, confused by human tactics and divided by internal conflict, was in full retreat. Many ships had simply stopped fighting when their crews realized they were attacking those who had saved their children. Kethvar looked around, at the ruins of Seoul, then at the hologram of young Vexthari playing peacefully. "If I choose your path, what happens to those who wish to continue the hunt?" "They can continue," Jin Wu said. "But in isolated systems, away from species that don't want to be hunted. The galaxy is big enough for different choices. And if I refuse? Then you leave, and we continue what we started." Eventually, your species will have to choose between evolution and extinction. Kethavar stood silent for a long moment, watching Kilmore teach human children how to create instead of destroy. Finally, he turned to his hunting pack. "Stand down," he ordered. "The hunt is over." 5 years later, Captain Nara stood on the bridge of the joint exploration vessel New Horizon. Half her crew was human, half was reformed Vexthari. They had been exploring the unknown regions of the galaxy, making peaceful contact with new species. Captain, called Navigation Officer Kilmore, now fully grown but still blue-eyed and gentle, were receiving a distress signal from an unknown source. Nara looked at the tactical display. Deep in unexplored space, something was sending out a call for help, something that might be facing a threat even worse than the Vexthari had been. "Set course for the signal," she ordered. "Let's see what's out there." As the New Horizon jumped to faster than light speed, its mixed crew of former enemies worked together toward a common goal. Behind them, the galaxy had learned the most important lesson in its history. Evolution wasn't about being the strongest predator. It was about choosing what you wanted to become. And sometimes the greatest strength was the choice to be something other than what you were born to be.